So this is an Ixia 400T chassis. I've got a couple line cards in here with a bunch of SFPs, so I can do either copper or optic, fiber optic for various traffic testing. This machine's a little dated, but having Windows 2000 on it is not really a big deal because this thing really runs Linux on the internals anyway, on all the line cards as far as I remember. The problem I have with this chassis is the VGA out doesn't seem to be working today, and I'm not even sure if the console ports are, or if the serial port is supposed to work as a console. So what I need to do is something similar to what you would see with your traditional off-the-shelf motherboard. And this is actually a motherboard that was from a Dell that's destined to the scrap heap because it's apparently toast. But the important part here is where the CMOS battery is part of the motherboard. If there's any settings that you screw up in the BIOS and the machine just doesn't boot right, or you can't get back into the BIOS for some reason because you really messed up some of the settings, then you can either pop the battery out, or is this board, there's this one jumper that's right next to the battery, and this is probably the reset jumper, but I don't really care on this board because it's just going away. I mean, I could probably steal, you know, 1 or 2 jumpers or whatever that's off this for the miscellaneous parts box, but no big deal. The point here is that I have to do the same thing on this, but this is an embedded system. It's got a very small motherboard and a very, very dense and mission-specific design, so it's not going to be your traditional system. So what I'm going to do is, in advance, I've already removed all of the screws, and I wouldn't do this unless you have support from Ixia, or if your machine is past warranty or end of life, then this may be your only option. But I removed all of these screws on the outside, and also these 2 screws which keep the main board, and this actually is where the CPU is bound to the chassis. You don't actually have to remove these 2 immediately. You can wait until the shell is off. So since I've done this in advance, you just slide the cover out, tip it up a little bit, because there is a bit of a catch that's going to hold into the front of the chassis there. As you see, those fingers are going to hold that a little snug. So your first inch or 2 is going to be a little tight, but it shouldn't be that big a deal. And, sorry, my finger's in the way here. So if we come back over to the side where the machine is, where this motherboard is, you can see there's a hard drive on top, a floppy drive, and a little bit of electronics for the controller, for the power button. And this is actually where the main board is on the side here. So I took the liberty of also in advance removing these 2 screws here, the top 2 screws for the fan, and also this screw here at the very top, and that allows me to take this piece out of the assembly and get easier access to the main board. Now, since I've removed the 2 screws that are here, I can remove this board, and this board is it looks like a 16-bit ISA, but I really don't know what is in there, because I've seen a header on this board for PC98 standard, but there's nothing else plugged into it. So I think somewhere along the design decision, it's just how it got influenced. So you can see there, this just pops right out. Now there's a lot of cables that are going to hold and tie this inside. It's going to be a little difficult. I had to remove the serial and parallel port, which are over here somewhere. I would advise that you take detailed pictures before you do this, because I may have gotten this wrong, and I'm not going to tell you which one I think it is, because I'm going to have to experiment a little later to figure out which one it is. After you remove those, it should be a little easier to pull this sideways, and then you're going to have the floppy cable and the hard drive cable and the USB cable and power and a couple other things holding this in place. But now, as you can see, the CMOS battery here is all I need to remove. And if you take a small screwdriver to where my thumb is, you can push this lever back and pry underneath the battery to pull it out. And since I don't know where the reset jumper is, this is my best option for now. Or if you have enough dexterity and you've caught on to doing that yourself, then as you can see here, I was able to pull the battery out. So I just pushed that little lever that's on the left hand side back far enough with my finger now, but you'll probably just want to use a screwdriver. And turn the light on here. As you can see inside, there are a ton of jumpers. There's jumpers. There's a jumper here. There's a couple jumpers here. There's some jumpers here. There's more jumpers down there. There's jumpers everywhere on this thing, and I don't know which one's the right one to remove for the battery to reset the CMOS. So I'm going to leave this machine in this state probably just overnight, because I don't have anything pressing. And hopefully when I put the battery back in, I'll get back to the default settings. My lesson learned the hard way from this is try not to screw around with the BIOS settings. If I get lucky later on, I might be able to use a boot disk that has an auto exec file to dump a backup copy of the BIOS and then reflash the last known good settings from either this machine or another machine that I'm comfortable with. But as long as you have a backup, you should be okay. Anyway, that's all of my presentation for here. Feel free to leave some comments or subscribe, or give me some advice as far as what you know, anything related to this particular embedded machines. I have quite a bit of experience, with servers and PCs and A+ certification all the way up the wazoo, stuff they would never test for. So let's get past the lower hanging fruit and see what else we can get. Thanks.